Hi there.
Hi Ruth, lovely to see
Hi
you.
Paradox. Very good. How are you?
I'm very, very well. How are you?
Lovely. Great.
I love
thanks.
that intense look. It's great, isn't it? It's not because we're on camera or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, we're totally natural.
we're like that anyway.
We just like this all the time.
Absolutely.
Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Very welcome.
And thanks for, welcoming us to your epic pad.
Isn't it gorgeous? It is a little bit of heaven. Someone wise told me that about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, it won't be.
Won't be you.
Yeah.
But it genuinely is. It's a little patch in this wonderful ancient forest here in the east of Portugal.
Yes.
Terra Sanga, provided by the wonderful Ben. And we are here to talk a little bit about the thing that is closest to my heart, which is the pathway that I practice.
Yes.
Officially known as the Way of Mastery,
Yes.
but I like to call it Christic Vipassana.
Christic Vipassana. I can't wait to hear about it.
Which
Come
has
on.
just got a nice ring to it, hasn't it?
It has. Oh, totally. I'm really into it already.
So I'm somebody, for those who don't know me, I'm 54 years old. I'm known as Chris Paradox, used to be known as Paradox the Poet, for about 20 years, from about 2000. I won't go into my whole story, but what I will say is that, like many people, I've been a seeker of truth
Yeah.
and awakening and inner peace and healing
Yeah.
for many years, and I've done a number of practices. I've done a number of long fasts, vision quests, ayahuasca, various plant medicines, and spiritual pathways. In India, I've done courses in what they call Neo-Advaita, non-duality, some Dzogchen based courses.
What's that? Dzogchen.
Dzogchen, it's the Tibetan, highest form of Tibetan Buddhism,
Okay, wonderful. Yeah.
and also very standard Vipassana, which
Wonderful.
the one run by Goenka, where
Yes.
they have centers around the world, 10-day silent retreats. So I've done a number of those practices, and I would say that all of them have brought me benefit
Yes.
and have brought me insight and various experiences. However, none of them really got to the root of what I now understand to be the core wound
Right.
that is shared by anyone that is incarnated on this planet,
Yes.
which is the wound caused by the belief in separation.
Okay.
The belief that we are separate from all of life and
Amazing.
all of the universe and God and spirit
Right.
and love.
Right.
And that is a very intransigent wound. It's very hard to get to,
Yeah.
because it literally, in my tradition, created the body.
Right.
The reason we have a body is a reflection of that belief in
Yes,
separation. So
yes.
it's a soul level belief
Yes.
that has been operative for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of lifetimes.
Okay.
And the whole purpose of all our lifetimes is for us to experience the full range of experiences that can come from separation,
Yes.
that require space and time
Yes.
and the material world.
Yes.
There's all these things that we all experience, and our soul wants to experience them all. It wants to discover, really, is there a way of experiencing the bliss of oneness
Okay.
in separation?
Okay.
And what the soul discovers is, there isn't. We can get close to it, to some degree, through lovemaking and our highest creative joy and, these kind of mystic experiences in nature.
Moments of plant medicine.
Moments of plant medicine.
Yeah.
There are so many things but what they do is they bring us back to unity.
Yes.
And it's that experience of unity that gives us the thing.
Yes.
So it's like you can't actually get it in separation, but the soul keeps trying.
Yes.
And until it reaches a point where it says, okay, I get it, God. The only way to experience the kingdom of heaven, the bliss and peace that passes all understanding, is to just surrender and return to the one.
Right.
And at that stage, the soul finds a pathway that I would say I found, which is called the Way of Mastery,
Yes.
which was channeled in the I think the late 90s through a guy whose name then was John Mark Hammer,
Okay.
but he changed his name to JM, and he wrote a series of books, The Way of the Servant, and then 3 books, The Way of the Heart, The Way of Transformation, and The Way of Knowing.
Okay.
And those 3 together are known as The Way of Mastery.
Okay.
And the being that channeled them calls himself Jeshua Ben Joseph,
Okay, I've heard this name before. Yes.
and he is what we would know as, or I know as, sweet baby Jesus.
Okay, wonderful, great.
Jesus Christ. And it's basically the teachings of the Christ mind, or Christ consciousness, or unity consciousness, or love consciousness.
Wonderful.
And it's based on the simple understanding that we are all perfectly innocent, whole, radiant, infinite, eternal, divine sparks of light.
Yeah, wonderful.
And we have always been that. We can't be anything else,
Yes
and
to
we will
that.
always be that.
Yes to that.
And nothing we ever experience in the dream of separation can ever taint or touch that. God's love for us as its child is eternal, infinite, unconditional, has never stopped,
Limitless,
can
yeah.
never stop. And so basically it's all good. There's nothing to be afraid of, there's nothing to regret, there's nothing to worry about. It's all peace and love. It really is the best you could ever hope it to be. However, because we are the children of God, the perfect children of God, we are ceaselessly creating our experience of reality.
Yes.
And you know, the secret, even though I'm not a fan, is right in a certain respect, is that thought is creative.
Yes.
But not the level of thought that the secret talks about, not the conscious level of
No.
thought, the deeper level of thought, which is soul thought.
Yes.
Soul thought creates planets.
Right.
Your soul creates universes.
Nice.
That's how you're infinite.
Yes.
And you literally have created this universe and come to live in it.
Okay.
And so is mine.
Yes.
And at that level, thoughts create suns and planets and
Right.
and they also create a body
Yes.
and the family that you choose to be born into, the time period, the country, and then the various comings together of relationship and experience that make up your life.
Right.
And this is that we are ceaseless creators. We are always creating our experience of reality.
Yeah.
We are never the victim of what we think we are. It's a bit like, so if you imagine you have a dream,
Yes.
so you fall asleep and you have a dream, and in the dream you're being chased by monsters.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. In the dream you might say, "Oh, I'm being victimized by the monsters." You're right.
Right.
But you are the one who has created the monsters. They're all
course.
part of your mind,
Yeah.
and that's the way it is in the world.
Okay. Yes.
So all the bad guys and
Yeah.
are the creation of your own soul.
Yeah.
And we create situations so that the soul can have certain experiences. So the soul actually wants to experience judgment, loss, fear,
Victim.
everything.
Yes.
Everything, good and bad.
Yeah.
The soul wants to experience it, and that's what life is. It's
Yeah.
the experience of everything.
Yeah.
And the way to receive the gift of that, so that the soul gets what it wants,
Yeah.
is to open and allow all experiences, and not to resist or judge them, not to blame or project
No.
wrongness onto the world or other people, our parents for their not perfect parenting, our partners for their not perfect partnering,
Yeah.
or ourselves
Yeah.
for our not perfect selving. And so the only real problem that causes suffering is resistance, judgment, and making wrong.
Yeah.
Because if you accept and allow the flow of experience to arise and pass away,
Yeah.
you simply don't suffer.
No.
You just experience.
Yeah.
And an experience might be, for example, losing a limb. Here's an example, and my pathway has been, they call it the the path of the cross,
Yes.
which is the path of loss and trauma. And that's one pathway amongst many, but my pathway to remember that my soul is loved by God and safe and eternal is to remember that I'm not the body. And a good way to remember you're not the body is to lose parts of your body and realize, oh, I'm no less than I was before. I don't have a lower right leg, but that doesn't touch in any way my essence. I also recently lost the sight in my right eye, same thing. And so my pathway, there's a wonderful poem that Goenka says at the end of Vipassana. It's easy to be happy when life flows along like a sweet song, but the man worthwhile is the man who can smile when everything goes dead wrong. And that's always been my pathway. It's like when loss and tragedy and trauma comes, it's an opportunity to remember that I am the dreamer of all of this. And none of this really taints or affects my eternal soul. And if I can identify with my eternal soul rather than my temporary body mind, you transcend suffering. And that is how you heal. You heal by not misidentifying with the objects of your awareness, which are thoughts, emotions, memories, sensations, the body and the ego. Those are things that you can know. Those are things you can be aware of. And therefore you can't be them. You can't be something you are aware of because you are the one who is aware of them. You are the subject of awareness, the observer, the witness. And all of healing is really all about disidentifying from the objects of awareness, the thoughts, the emotions, the memories, and re-identifying with the subject of awareness, the dreamer. And that is the Christic path. There are certain practices and meditations, but they're all living meditations, and that's the key. What makes it different from all the other paths I mentioned that I talked about is that my practice is something I'm doing right now.
All the time.
All the time. When you're cooking, when you're cleaning, when you're making love, when you're doing your art, it's that you constantly retain an awareness of that place. This place, this is just fascinating. I love it. So a lot of that, I mean, I've been to a few Vipassanas, and what you were saying about the observer and like just really sitting with it and finding that equanimity and how much freedom there is when we break out of that, the craving, the liking, the not liking, which ultimately, I literally was just saying this morning, life can suffer, you know, like that's the reality. It can be super uncomfortable, it can be agony at times, and it's just part of life. And the most highest loving true way we can approach it is to accept it and let it come and go and pass through and flow with no clinging, no resistance, and let it just, you know, because it's just part of life. Beautiful. This too shall pass, eh? This too shall pass. Absolutely,
yeah, really beautiful. I've and so tell me about the technique. So you offer healing.
Yeah, so I would say that I hesitate to call myself a healer because in our tradition, okay, so there's four axioms of truth that we live by. They're not really commandments, but you can think of it that way. Only love is real. Love alone heals. Teach only love. Bless the whole creation. And only love is real is another way of saying there is only God, or we are all one. Oneness is God is love. God is love, love is God, oneness is God, oneness is love. So they all mean the same thing. And we know that because of religion, this man-made God who punishes some people and listens to some prayers and has chosen people, that's a ridiculous God. But because of our world, a lot of people think of, when you say the word God, they think of that ridiculous man in the sky with a beard.
Man on the throne,
Man on the throne, which is just a projection of the human ego, of the king of the universe. God is not the king of the universe. God is the ground of all being in which the universe arises.
Can I add that, because I know a lot of people that
And
really
it's not a
believe, a lot of people that really believe in that, is that, because I really am intending to have respect for everyone's beliefs, you know, so I wouldn't want to call it ridiculous.
Okay, sorry.
But no. But you know what I mean? Because and ultimately, it's just a reflection of exactly where that person's at within themselves.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Sorry.
Because
I'll rephrase it. You'll rephrase it. To me, that's a ridiculous God.
Totally get that. Yeah.
My mum is devoutly religious, and I talk to her about God, and I use the word God because I know that because at the end of the day, God is highest meaning. Yeah. It's, you know, so let's say, for instance, you're an atheist. Yeah. To you, to most atheists, science has highest meaning. So that's your God. Yeah. And if the God of the Bible is highest meaning, then that's your God. Yes. I'm fine with it. Yeah. But if you want to actually define that which is all-powerful, all-knowing, and is everywhere, it's got to have some logic to it. Yeah. So a God that can be made angry and needs you to do something can't be all-powerful, because an all-powerful God doesn't need anything.
I'm completely
so that's what I mean by ridiculous.
But so how because I was raised as a really strict Jehovah's Witness, right? And we really, you know, followed. I used to go to meetings like church 3 times a week. I used to go on knocking on the doors. Like, I was really fully into it. And then I just realised, you know, when I left, that actually, for me, it was like an unnecessary middleman to my spirituality, and that even since I was a child, I used to talk to nature. I always used to talk to nature, and I used to talk to God in nature. And for me, it's always been like that, and just really like feeling it in the breeze, in the air, and the water, and like really feeling this life force all around me. And I just feel like, yeah, that's how I view God, and that he's everywhere, or she's everywhere, and it's limitless. Everywhere. And it's me. Yeah. And we're all mirrors of the same.
There's nothing. There is only God. That's what we came in. And I love the unnecessary middleman, because that's exactly what all created forms of God. So there's the God every child knows. Yeah. That's God. Yeah. Every child knows. Yeah. Just as you described, I had the same thing when I was a kid, and then we're taught religion, and we think, oh, okay, so they're calling this thing that I know this. Yeah. And then I learn about it, and then it's got all these rules and commandments, and you know, some of us absorb that, and fair enough. My mum was one of them, and many people were one. And like you say, I'm not disparaging anyone. I'm just saying, in my experience and my understanding, that God that I knew as a child is the same God that I know now. Yeah. And I don't need any middlemen.
No. And to just go back to the middleman, in the for me, the Bible, like when I read it as a child and even look back on it now, there's such beautiful wisdom in there that isn't how it was delivered to me. Like, when I read it, you know, and also I don't know if you've ever read it, the book Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. It's all about the Christ consciousness. No. It's channeled by a woman that I'll put it in the notes, the author, I can't remember her name, but she's Jesus,
I love it.
And she's telling his story through her eyes. Nice. And it's so beautiful, and it really resonates to me so much. Yeah. And then to actually look on all the things that she channels actually correlate to the Bible fully, and then to really, you know, look at that, and just a lot of the Bible for me was like, it didn't resonate, you know, but isn't that a gift to recognise that when we're offered these things, that's what gives us the chance to grow and be like, actually no, that doesn't feel right. And that's not quite that for me. It's something else.
A really important point, and this is the beauty of the truth of oneness, is that yes, the Bible was a man-made document where in the Council of Nicaea in 323 AD, when the Roman Empire decided to adopt Christianity after persecuting the Christians for 300 years. Yeah, wow. It decided to make Christianity the official religion, and it brought all these kind of early bishops together to decide which books to include in the official Bible. Okay. And as has been known, they left out a lot of the books that talked about women in a sacred way and made it very patriarchal, blah, blah, blah. However, some of the books in there came from what we would know as prophets and came from mystics. And some of the books came from what we would call the political forces that wanted to keep a tribe together. So if
Okay.
you think about 2,500 years ago, the Jewish various tribes who were coming from Egypt and had to fight off other tribes, the Bible was kind of like, a bit like we look at modern day religion. It was a way to keep everyone agreeing on things and to keep everyone socialized into certain rules. So such that, you know, eat fish on Friday, you don't do this, and this is unclean, and etc., etc.
Keep it like a culture.
Like a culture, just to keep everyone together. And one perfect example is, so in the Bible, some modern day fundamentalist Christians have a big thing against gay relationships.
Yeah.
And because in the Bible it says this is an abomination and you must not do it. There's an easy way to explain that, is that if you're in a small Israeli tribe 2,500 years ago and too many people are being homosexual, your tribe will not procreate and grow.
You disappear.
So you'll disappear. So you make homosexuality bad in order to have more sex between men and women.
And grow.
And then 2,500 years later, you read that and you think, oh, homosexuality is bad before God. It's not. It was politically bad and put in something that became the word of God. You see what I mean? So on the one hand, you've got this mixture of mystical teachings, which are very spiritual, and political teachings, which aren't. And then you've got the Roman Empire all putting it together. But as you said, my favorite, all-time favorite song and poem is the 23rd Psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd." It is exquisite, and it absolutely, King David was a mystic, and it is absolutely the song of any mystic. It's like Rumi or Master Eckhart. It's like any mystic's song, and it's in the Bible. And the Beatitudes, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, absolutely exquisite. And so you can find lots of exquisite things in the Bible. And this is the truth, is that even though the Bible might have been man-made for political reasons and there is only God. And God always shines through everything if you look with the eyes of God. And that's the whole thing of unity. It's like you see where you're looking from. If you look from love, you will see love.
Totally.
If you look from fear, you will see fear. If you look from judgment, you will see judgment. If you look from inequality, you will see superiority and inferiority. So it all depends on you. And that is the practice, is taking complete responsibility for your perceptions and your projections, and realizing that the world is neutral. It's a contextual field that we project value, meaning, goodness, badness onto.
Absolutely.
None of it exists out there. We are the one, the value lies in us, the meaning lies in us. We are the divine sparks, and we are creators, and we are creating our experience by projecting meaning and value onto everything. And we think it's in the world, we think it's in our relationship, we think it's in our children, we think it's in our big house, we think it's in our bank balance, we think it's in our political party. It's not in any of those things. It's in us, and we put it there. And it's realizing, oh, I am the one who is creating my experience of good and bad. So then I can then choose, okay, what experience do I really want? Do I want an experience of strife and judgment and struggle? Or do I want an experience of peace and harmony and love and creativity? And then you just start to create it. And that's really what the pathway of mastery is. It's mastery of oneself, one's perceptions, one's feelings, and one's projections. And once you master yourself, basically your fear and your pain, and your shame and your guilt, that's your responsibility. Once you master yourself and you heal that stuff, then you master life. Then life becomes a kid in a sandbox. Life becomes your plaything, and you manifest and do miracles, as we call them. But it's not miracles, it's just how consciousness works. This is all consciousness. You are consciousness, and this is just reflecting your consciousness to you. So once you master your consciousness, then life manifests. As I said, the secret has got a little bit of the truth. You do create and manifest, but it's a lot more to it. It's a lot deeper than just the surface. The conscious level is about 10%. The subconscious level is another 40%, and then the soul level is the other 50%. And you need to get all of that right if you want to do miracles and manifest like that.
I've just just yesterday been recording one of my favourite books, which is A Wise Heart by Jack Cornfield.
What's it called?
A Wise Heart.
Oh.
So the first version is called A Path with Heart, Path with Heart,
Yeah.
and then the second, the sequel to the book is A Wise Heart. And the very first it talks about is nobility, and seeing with the eyes of nobility, and seeing feeling it within ourselves, and then seeing it in everyone, and having that as a practice, and having the practice as, you know, practicing. You start your day and you're going to tell yourself, you know, I'm going to see the goodness in one person, or two people, or three or four, and then I'm going to see it in all my loved ones. Then I'm going to see it in the ones I don't like. That's when it's actually you're doing the work.
That's when it starts
and
to
then
kick
you
in.
know, and then I'm going to do it with my enemies.
Yes.
But I love it so much because it tells a little story of one of the largest statues of Buddha in, I think it was in Tibet, and for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years it's been looked after by the monks, and one year they were looking, you know, keeping it, cleaning it and whatever, and they noticed some cracks appearing in the clay. And it wasn't by any means one of the most beautiful, but it was one of the oldest and the biggest. So it was really like honoured and revered. And anyway, they saw these cracks appearing. I thought we're going to have to repair it very soon. And in the cracks was some bright gold light shining back. So they realised, they uncovered it. And what had happened was, in times of conflict, when the different militaries were coming over and the government was unsettled, they covered this giant gold Buddha in all this clay, so that to hide, to protect it, to keep it safe. And then it likens in the book that we do that. We do it all the time because of the pain and the suffering and what's happening in life. We put all these layers on to protect ourselves, and then we forget our true essence, and we get lost. We get lost looking at the clay, going, you know, digging for more clay and more dark and more wounds, and instantly, like, the mind will find whatever you look for.
Yeah.
So if you want to go in a black hole of, like, what you call is healing and constant shadow work, which is very worthy work, I'm not dissing it, but it needs to be in balance. And right now the most revolutionary act is to have fun on the planet, is to be in joy, is the most,
is to celebrate.
Come on, you know, we're getting spoon-fed fear in every direction and separation. So if we can find to remember our innate goodness and beauty and shine that
and
to
to
each
sing
other.
and dance and celebrate life.
Yeah, that's what I'm about.
I know you are. and that beautiful story of the Buddha is also reminds me of Leonard Cohen's line, the cracks are where the light comes in.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. I love that.
So
that's
beautiful.
Absolutely spot on. We cover our light with layers in protection, you know, as we're children, as we're growing up, because we don't know what else are we going to do. We don't know how else to deal with pain and life and trauma. So we do that, and then we forget.
Yes.
We forget the life's there, and we think we are the layers of stuff.
Yes.
And the healing process is simply, first of all, in order to get through those layers, we can't, you know, we have three ways of dealing with our pain or our wounding, or whatever you want to call it, shadow. Three coping mechanisms that we develop as children and continue. One is to deny and suppress. We all know that. The other is to distract. We all know that. Comfort eating, watching YouTube, sex, work, you know, all the things we do to distract ourselves. The third one is the one that is least understood but is most common, and that is projection. We take our pain and our fear and we project it onto the world, onto our partners, onto our parents, onto our friends, onto our enemies, onto political. We project it. So what we don't want to look at in ourselves, or is too uncomfortable to look at, we see it in Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or whoever it is you think you're on the other side to. And so projection, denial and suppression, and distraction are what we do with that layer. And what the problem is that those things don't work. When we project our fear and pain, it doesn't go away.
No, we create more.
It festers and becomes more. When we suppress it and deny it, it doesn't go away. It becomes more. When we distract ourselves, it doesn't go away. All three create a monster. All three make it worse. But that's all we know how to do until we learn a true path of healing. And a true path of healing says, don't depress and don't suppress, don't distract, don't project. Own allow,
take full responsibility.
embrace, accept, and love it to death.
Yes.
Love it to death, and allow. You know, you can't heal what you can't feel.
Yes.
So when your triggered pain comes up, that's not a bad thing. That is in fact the best thing.
Yeah.
Because when it's in the unconscious, you can't do anything about
No.
it. But when you're triggered, now you can see it. Now
Yeah,
the layer, the
yeah.
cracks coming through.
Yeah.
So you can see a layer and you say, okay, oh, that's my layer of protection.
Yeah.
That's something I use to protect myself. Okay, now I'm safe.
Feels like hell.
Yeah, it feels horrible, but I'm safe within.
Yeah, no.
And I, you know, if
yes,
I can
yes,
feel the
yes.
painful, I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's the stories and thoughts about how terrible I am or how terrible someone else is. I know, I can see all that. But in that place of witnessing,
Yeah.
I'm safe.
Yes.
I can just relax
Yeah.
into that place of just pure seeing, just
Yeah.
pure observing, no judgment, no
Yeah.
resistance. And the thing can be there and it can be roiling and roiling. But if I just observe,
Yeah.
don't resist.
No,
That's
no,
the
no,
key.
no.
Because judgment is resistance and resistance is judgment. So if I don't judge it and I don't make it wrong or make it bad or make it have to go away,
Yeah.
if I'm just, okay, I'm here with you.
Yeah.
Hello, fear.
Yeah. What do you need?
What do you need? What are you trying to teach me? Hello, pain. Even
Totally.
physical pain this
Yeah,
works
yeah.
with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Emotional pain,
Yeah,
physical
yeah.
pain. Okay, pain, I'm with you.
It's the same.
I will just
Yeah.
embrace you and be. It's like if you have a toothache. If you just be with it, it's less than if you try and, oh, I want it to go away.
Oh.
The more you resist it, the more painful it is.
Way more.
Way more.
Way more.
And I'm sure childbirth and all these things are the
Yeah,
same.
yeah.
Is that the more you breathe and relax into it, be present with it, stay with it, and what will happen is that the layer of that we covered over the Buddha, it crumbles away. It dissolves and it reveals the truth of what it was. And what it always was consciousness. It was just your own mind that you use to cover it over. And then it becomes spacious and like nothing, and then it reveals the light.
Yeah.
And that's all healing is.
Yeah.
It's just accepting and allowing what is to arise and pass away. Because that's all everything wants to do. It just wants to arise, be seen, be known, be recognized, so that it can pass
Yeah.
away. But what we do is, when it arises, if we don't like it, instead of allowing it to be, we judge it. You're wrong. You're bad. You should not be. And we do the same thing to people. We do the same thing to experiences. We do the same thing to everything. If we call something wrong, we are saying it is not God.
Yes, basically.
And if we call something wrong and shouldn't be, we're saying that we know more than the universe.
And we're denying that part of ourselves, which is what's creating the problem in the first place.
And it is, we're calling ourselves wrong, exactly.
Yeah.
So just think of it this way. It's like, do you know more than the universe? If something is existing, it means the universe wants it to exist.
Totally.
And if you then say, no, you're wrong, you're bad, you are saying that you know more than the universe. So that's obviously not true. So have some humility.
Yeah.
And say, if it's there must be a reason.
Yes.
I don't know the reason, so let me discover.
Yeah.
Let me discover why this thing is here. Let me be with it long enough to discover, rather than automatically reacting in judgment and resistance. And you will
Totally.
find that healing is easy. As soon as you let go of that reaction,
And even, I really love to receive it. To like, really like, if I'm feeling triggered, or like there's an emotional processing technique that I share, and it's really holding yourself as a child, literally, and like having, if you want to have a sob, sometimes I literally feel like I'm going to puke when I'm really triggered. I'm like, oh, it's just taking over my body in a full possession, and just holding it, and literally as a child, what do you need? I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, whatever you want, like really like this, and it goes, it just goes, and it's held, and it's good.
I need to share our little thing, because you practice what you preach, and
Okay,
we
go for it.
myself and Ruth have a little
Quite
thing. But
hilarious.
I teach a practice called the Wounded Child Lullaby, which is exactly that.
Okay, beautiful.
Which is where you see your pain and fear as a wounded child, as little Ruth or little Chris, and you bring the arms of a loving parent to it. You embrace
You become
it.
the parent.
You become
stop
the
looking-
parent.
You take responsibility.
You take
So,
responsibility, and yeah, you give it the love, because all our pain and fear want is to be seen
Yeah.
and to be witnessed. And that's what that's what you do. That's what you're doing when you do that. And I know that Ruth practices what she preaches, because
This is a little bit cringy.
a couple of weeks ago, before I did a 10-day fast recently, and I'd only just arrived here, and I haven't got a car, and I don't. I was basically lost, and I was concerned about my break fast and doing a break fast shopping. And I kind of unthinkingly, I didn't give it too much thought, because I can only use the internet when I go up to the house. You shouldn't be embarrassed at all.
It's fine.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, go.
I can only use the internet at certain points in the day where I go to a certain place. So I was like, oh, Ruthie, because Ruth's an old friend, and she basically put me in touch with Ben, and it's the reason that I'm here.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, Ruthie, look, would you mind going to the shop? And and honestly, I started with quite a small list, and I kept adding to it. And I basically created this, it was a massive shopping list. And I asked, when you go shopping, could you go shopping for me and get these things for me? And in my head, it was like a little favor to ask. But not only was it a very big shopping list, I didn't also realize that the main supermarkets were about an hour's drive away. So it was actually a massive ask. I wasn't aware of any of this, and I was going into silence.
It was probably like half a day.
Yeah, it was half a day. It was a big, a big deal.
Half a day.
And but I wasn't aware of this when I sent the message. So I sent it to Ruth, and then I went off and did and I think I went into the fast, and I wasn't speaking, but I was writing. And then a day went by, and Ruth hadn't got back to me, and then another day by, and he hadn't got back to me, and then there was then you know when you get that deleted, this message was deleted, so I was like, okay. And then I just sort of thought, okay, well, maybe it is a big ask, and maybe she's got stuff going on, and I said, look, Ruth, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. I don't want you to worry about anything. It's no problem. I'll sort myself out.
Yeah, you'd already spoken to Idris.
And I think by that time I'd already spoken. Yeah, so I sorted out, and Idris said he'd do it. And then Ruth said, oh, thanks very much. And then I came out of the fast, and then Ruth said, Chris, can you come round? I just want to have a chat with you. I was like, oh, okay.
Shall I tell you mine?
Yeah, you said the recipe.
So basically, hilarious. When Chris sent me the message, this is how I received it. So it was like, hey Ruthie, be an angel. Can you get me my shopping? And then he just did this massive long list, and I got immediately triggered, and I felt like he was taking advantage, and that he was like being like a rich person that just expects, the help to do something. And I was like, and I knew he was going in silence, so I didn't feel I could even share this then, because I know what it's like when you go in silence, you absorb a lot. So I was like, I didn't reply, and I didn't reply, and then when you told me that you'd got it sorted, and then I saw you, and I was like, oh my goodness. And what had happened with the trigger and not then communicating it, I just carried it, and I actually felt like I didn't like Chris. And then I was like, as soon as he was coming out of silence, I was like,
can you
please.
believe it? Didn't like me.
But I was like, can I please just speak to you in private? I really need to explain something to you. And I just told you, didn't I? I was like, I'm really sorry. I was triggered. And then I unconsciously, from that trigger, actually started not liking you. And now I've realised that's the case. I've ditched all of it, and I just want you to know that, yeah, I love you, bruv. Yeah.
That in itself is such a beautiful process for someone to go through, and for me to kind of witness, because this is going on all the time. People are saying things, sometimes thoughtlessly, but sometimes innocently, that for whatever reason cause a trigger in someone. And once that person is triggered, they can easily get lost into a whole story of don't like that person, this person thinks I'm that, a whole story that's got nothing to do with the truth, and they can get lost in that story to the degree that they completely change their relationship with that person.
Oh, they cut people off.
They cut people off. Families don't speak to each other for 20 years. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it can come from one little thing like that. So for me, for Ruth to have that experience of being triggered, go to the point of not liking me, and
then love him.
But then see that, and then be able to process it and leave it aside, and then want to say to me exactly what she went through.
But
it's just exquisite.
I knew that telling you is the most effective way to clear it out, because that immediately, there's no denial, and so it's lost all of its power, and the ego, which is an ego thing, is just completely dissipated.
Absolutely.
So I knew that in doing that was the quickest and most effective way to clean it. It's what you're explaining about the way of mastery is very, very similar to what I'm understanding is the moon medicine that I'm practicing. Because as we go into our descent, our wounds that come up, we attract people that trigger us because our wounds needs healing, and they're dying to come up and out. And any opportunity, you know, when, I don't know if you ever feel like really trigger happy at times, and it's like, oh my God, and it's for women specifically in particular parts of our cycle. That's what's happening, you know. We often think, you know, oh, it's like
really?
it's just our it's just it's just our intuition, or you know, and it's often we're being triggered, and this wound needs to come up. Like for me then, that was the wound of unworthiness. You know, someone making me feel like that, whereas no one can make me feel anything, but that's the feeling that came up. So I'm like, hang on, when I can realise that, I'm like, I am worthy, of course, and I can act in a very worthy way and meet it, you know, like, but yeah, it's very similar, because it's a way of life, you know, like,
it's a way of life.
It's not just on the mat or just in the meditation room. Like, sisters, we're all cyclical, but specifically the sisters, we are going through this death and rebirth every single month, and it's literally a rite of passage. And when we meet it as a medicine journey, we are upgrading, is what's happening. But many of us are just almost slaves to it. We suppress it, it's uncomfortable.
And culturally there's a stigma and all this.
Loads. It's not actually welcomed. It doesn't even serve us to be women in the society at large.
You
today,
need the red tent, you know, the original red tent. And the thing I was going to say about when you said about it's like you want it to come up, and again in this pathway, the expression is you can't heal what you can't feel. And it's that understanding is that in our culture we've got this whole thing about trigger warnings and safe spaces and you offended me, where the worst thing in the world that can happen to you is to have your pain triggered. And so we're creating a world of safe spaces and non-triggerness and no offense, so that we can avoid ever being triggered. And that is literally the opposite of healing, because you can't heal what you can't feel. It has to come up, and that it's only when it's up and you can feel the pain of it that you can then do the wounded child lullaby, then bring your arms around it and then heal it. While it's down there, it runs you. And that's a simple fact, is that we are run by our unconscious scripts of fear and pain and blah 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 blah. So it's running you like a puppet when it's down there, but when it comes up and I have a feeling of unworthiness, that's when you can say, oh, let me bring love to my unworthiness. My feeling of unworthy is so worthy.
You're so worthy.
That's when you can heal it. So it's like rather than, this is why I say this pathway is the opposite of most pathways. In this pathway, it's like, live your life full out with passion, open to all triggering. Life will trigger you every single day. There'll be opportunities for trigger. Don't avoid them. Welcome them, embrace them, because that is how you heal.
Totally. Sorry, I was like, I think I really feel that if they're when they say, you know, this is trigger content, or maybe I actually like that they do that, because I feel it's being responsible. Because there's a time and a place for triggering, and yes, it can come in all shapes and forms all the time, but some people's trauma and wounds are way bigger than others. And it's really cool if we can help collectively hold space for that. And we're all responsible for our own that, but I just think that in communicating that, okay, for example, if someone says to me, okay, if I really appreciate if someone says to me, this is probably going to trigger you. So I'm like, okay, and I'm ready, and it helps, because we need help, because it is so deeply embedded in us, it's subconscious, that they are running the show, like you said. So if any help we can give to each other, I think great. I
think what you just described there is more honouring. That's like, if somebody is aware that somebody might have a wound around something, they just go bleh. That's to me, that's just honouring and respecting each other. The type of stuff that I'm talking about is more about censoring speech that you don't like. And trigger warning. That's not the same thing. That's like, I don't want to hear what you have to say because I disagree with it and it upsets me to hear it. That's a completely different thing than being sensitive to what healing work someone has got to do, or what trauma somebody is dealing with, or what journey somebody is on, and just not having to bowl all over them with your need to express yourself. that's a give and take.
Yeah,
That's just honoring. It's like,
yeah.
I freely, I personally, as a poet, I am a massive advocate of free speech.
Yes.
I will not be censored.
Right.
However, I am not going to say something that's going to upset somebody that I don't want to upset. Like, it's simple as that. It's like, even though I understand that triggering is good and there's no part of me that doesn't want to be kind and gentle.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
It's like I can express myself freely and be kind and gentle.
Yes.
And that is an art. There's an art to that. And again, that's the Christic way.
Yeah.
The Christic way is always to bring the peace of Christ, is always to bring the love of God, is always to bring the equality of brother and sister in spirit. It's like there's no reason ever not to do that. Like, and if you think there is, that is the part of you that needs healing. Yeah. Because but I have to say what I have to say. No, you don't.
Yeah. Just have a look at that for a moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Sit with yourself for a moment.
The part of you that feels compelled to say it is a problem. That's the reactivity. The part of you that is free to say it, that's true. You are free to say it, but you can say it in an artful way, in a loving way, in a kind way. It's simple.
Kindness, compassion.
Yeah.
I feel like
they're very simple words, but they're profound.
Oh, and it's the medicine of the moment, no? Compassion. Like, everyone's getting triggered and their wounds and trauma from all over are coming up. And
really? I've noticed.
and I just think that compassion in this time is a superpower, because it's what can help us see our reflections in each other and bring us back to that oneness again. And it's not that. Absolutely.
Compassion and forgiveness.
Forgiving ourselves.
Within ourselves. I mean, it always starts within ourselves, but that's a good thing, those two words. So compassion is the Eastern version, and they often say that the Buddha is the world teacher of the mind, and Christ is the world teacher of the heart. I kind of like that. And compassion is the thing that emerges from the purification of the mind in the Eastern way, and forgiveness is what emerges from the purification of the heart in the Eastern way. They're the same thing, and truly forgiveness is always forgiveness of oneself, because truly no one, like you said before, no one can really do any. No one. The way I put it is, my favourite saying is, "Everything under my skin is mine," and it's just taking responsibility for your thoughts, your unhappiness, your happiness, your state of being, your emotions, because they're under your skin, they're yours. And people often, but what happens, and I'll take an example. Let's say, for instance, you were abused by your parents as a child. Let's see where you're absolutely innocent, there's no argument about it, you're a child, and it's your parents, the people that you look to for caregiving, that abused you. And I'm an abused child, and almost everybody I know had some version of this. And then you grow up, and then you have your childhood wounding around your parents, like we all do. And then I say to you, everything under your skin is yours. You say, but my mum did this. But is she doing it now? Yeah. She's not doing it now. She did it before. So that means that in the interim period, when you were abused as a child, as an innocent, you have had the opportunity to take responsibility for that wound, that fear, that pain, and to do what we were saying before. Have a look at it. Yeah. Go into it, embrace it, bring it, give it love. So we all have the opportunity to heal. If we don't, what happens is that we don't take responsibility for us, and we do those things I said. We project them, we suppress it, or we distract, and then we end up either overeating, or becoming a workaholic, or becoming an alcoholic, or becoming a bully, or becoming a wife beater. All these things that you see in human behaviour, they're all responses to childhood, pretty much. Always to childhood wounding. All addiction. They're all addictions.
Even to sugar, shopping, all of that is childhood wounding.
That's all childhood wounding, absolutely. Getting into a relationship with the wrong sort of person. So famously, you have the narcissist empath thing. That is both sides responding to their wounding. The narcissist. All narcissism is one response to childhood wounding, which is puffing yourself up as though you were the most important thing in the world to cover up your deep sense of unworthiness.
Yeah, because you felt as a child that you weren't.
You weren't unworthy. And then another way of dealing with unworthiness is becoming a neurotic paranoid that is obviously looks unworthy, but they're the same thing. They're just different responses to it. And so all of this stuff is childhood wounding, and it's like, if we all learned this one single thing, this would probably change the world quicker than anything else, is that I'm responsible for my unhappiness or happiness. I am responsible for my state. If I'm feeling unworthy or judged or abandoned or neglected or rejected, it's up to me to bring, self-parenting it's called, to self-parent.
Yeah.
It's not up to my boyfriend or girlfriend or government
absolutely,
or whatever. It's only me. It's my life.
Yes.
It's under my skin.
Yeah.
How can, and this is the real key, is that, and this is the saddest thing, is that when we don't take responsibility for our skin, we inevitably give the responsibility to someone else. We blame it, we project it. And that is what in our tradition is called victimhood.
Yeah.
I am the victim of my parents doing this to me. I'm the victim of this, the government. I'm the victim of whatever. And the problem with the victimhood, even though we cling to it for all we're worth, is that victims can't heal. Because as soon as you say that somebody else or something else is responsible for what you are experiencing, you've given your power away to do anything about it. You can't do anything if they're responsible. You can only do something if you're responsible. And this is the reason why taking responsibility for it is the most important thing, is because then you can heal it. Yes. If it's your parents' fault or your boyfriend or your girlfriend's fault, if it's somebody else's fault, you are doomed to suffer forever, because victims can't heal. They have no power. No. I'm a victim. I'm not a creator of my life. I'm a victim of life. I have no power. That's what you're saying. Yeah. And that's what I would encourage people, is really, really think about it. I know what the urge to blame feels like. I have it. I know what it feels like. I know how strong it is. But just remember that every time you feel to blame someone for the way you feel, you are literally giving your power away to heal. That's what you're doing. Just know that you're doing that, and it will help you not to do it.
Yeah. And I want to add, I've recently really witnessed that also when we do that, we are responsible for corrupting another person. When we give our power, because power corrupts, when we give our power to another person, they're only a human with an ego, we are responsible for corrupting them. So I want us to do that as well, because when you look at the whole picture, it's really easy to hate the politicians. That's so easy. But actually, what we're doing, we're all like saying what a bad job they're doing and doing what they're telling us to do still. So like, you know,
I'm not even going to go there, but that's absolutely right.
Know,
is that
like,
when you project out your responsibility on the other, you give them a responsibility that's not theirs. And you know, they can do anything with it. You know, if they're enlightened, they will just reject it. Yeah. That's not mine to own. But most people aren't enlightened, and they will take it on, and either they'll go on a power trip or they'll go on a guilt trip. Either way, you've messed them up, because you wouldn't keep it to yourself. And that's why I said, if we all did that, if we all just did this one simple thing that we can all agree is true, everything under my skin is mine. Yes. And if we just did that simple thing, it would end the game, the blame game, the projection game. And literally, the world will turn to heaven overnight. I promise you. Yeah. But it requires such a commitment to the truth to do it, because, as I said, that the urge of the wounded one to throw out what it doesn't want to feel is so powerful. Yeah. It's the most powerful force. Is, you know, we know it, the pain and pleasure principle. Yeah. Pain is that which we do not want to feel. By definition, that's what pain is. Yeah. It's what we don't want to feel. Yeah. So we automatically want to get rid of it. And that's what projection and blame is. So it's so deep that we have to understand that that's what's going on. And then we have to say, okay, let's get our ovaries and our testicles in order, and let's go for the healing journey. Because it's not a game. It can be a game, but it can be seen as a game. But it's a serious commitment to healing. Yeah. And it's not always going to be sunshine and roses.
No, it's not going to be sunshine and roses. It's not.
It's not. But the result of doing it is going to be your true self and your true power.
Definitely.
And your true power to choose. And this is what mastery is about. So mastery, the first step is everything under my skin is mine. And then mastery is the power to decide how to perceive every event, and therefore how to elicit any feeling. Yes. And that's how a master transcends suffering.
How to elicit any feeling.
Any
what does that
feeling.
mean?
Because when you can perceive anything as God's love, which is what we do in this part. So if you perceive everything, so losing my leg, I went through a process to perceive it as a gift, as God's love. And when you perceive something as a gift, you then can choose the feeling of gratitude.
Right.
Or joy.
You mean like you can choose anything?
You can choose. Basically, happiness is a choice, gratitude is a choice, love is a choice. They're all choices. We think that we need certain things or conditions, or certain things to be happy, or we need certain things to feel love, or we need certain blah blah blah. That is an illusion. The truth is that happiness is a choice, love is a choice, gratitude is a choice, and mastery is the ability to perceive anything any way you want.
Yes.
For example, being crucified is to perceive it as a gift, and to elicit the feeling of love for your crucifiers. So that was Jeshua's example to us all, is look, I can love the people who are torturing me. That is what is possible through mastery. Then there are many other people have done it. Viktor Frankl, Helen Keller is one of my favorites. Blind and deaf at the age of 1, went on to become the first woman to get a degree from American University, one of the first social activists for women, blind and deaf from the age of 1.
Amazing.
And speaks eloquently about all the stuff I'm saying. Non-victimhood, total responsibility. I can perceive things the way I choose to perceive them.
Yes.
And therefore I can choose to feel whatever I want to feel, because I am responsible for my state.
Totally.
I am responsible for my happiness and my unhappiness, not the world, not my mum and dad, not my girlfriend or boyfriend. I always say those because those are the ones we tend to...
They're standards, aren't they?
The standard, exactly.
It's totally standard. It reminds me of that Sufi quote, I use it all the time, of the Sufi mystics, may your sorrows be many. And it's literally like a blessing that they offer to someone, because they really recognise that through this suffering and the pain, all this that we're going through, the nitty-gritty of life, there is jewels, like massive
pearls.
gems and jewels. And I just think that's really, I find it really inspiring.
Yeah, may your sorrows be...
Think of the mentality, like we're the complete opposite.
Exactly.
Complete opposite. Anything to not feel uncomfortable or, you know, and actually wishing it on someone, like as a gift.
Yeah, I know. The Sufis are good like
Out
that.
There. So good. Beautiful. Really beautiful. Also, going back to what you were saying before about the denying parts of ourselves and saying that that's not us, and you know, and recognising, it reminds me of when I did a Aya ceremony, grandmother, with the Umbanda, practicing with the Umbanda. So they're the Afro-Brazilian religion. That they have the Oratias, okay? So the goddess, the deities. So the freshwater goddess is called Oshun, and then you've got the wind is Iansa, and then Yemanja is the sea, and her nickname's Nana, and they've all got different gifts, and you know, I'd love to. I will learn more and more about it, but they actually worship the underworld as well. There's a goddess, you know, a god for the underworld, and throughout the ceremony, at different times, you go to different places, and they really recognise like the alcohol and the drugs, and that, you know, and they make offerings to the underworld and recognise it's all God. It's all part of, and actually, if we acknowledge that in our society, I think that would just be so healing, wouldn't it? If you think about the cultures, the places where a lot of drugs are decriminalised. So just to decriminalise them, I'm not suggesting that everyone goes and takes those drugs, but just to decriminalise them, because actually, I wouldn't say this earlier, the people with addiction, so referring to addiction, also like our heroin and crack, like when they go to really hardcore addiction, this is pretty much 100% a person with excruciating childhood trauma who has been completely missed and let down by society. And I, for myself, I read Gabor Mate,
I was just about to say,
In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. Oh, I sobbed, because I was like, I've definitely been one of those people that has definitely judged crackheads, or, you know, just and viewed them as like the lowest, really openly about it, and And when I read this, I was just like, oh my God, he's so powerful, teaching the science behind compassion, and really recognizing that these people, when you're addicted to something to the extent that it completely destroys everything else in your life, and you still can't stop, your sober life is so agonizing. The pain that's constantly coming for you, the trauma that arises, is so agonizing that you're choosing that. And even if, you know, he gave an example of in a young woman's that he had been treating funeral. What if at the funeral, and all her other friends that were users were there, and she had died, but they'd still all go and use, and it's not like not even that would stop them, you know. But just wanted to add that because
Absolutely
it's so easy for people. Well, from my own personal experience, I would absolutely, and I think culturally we do.
Yes.
It was where I lived in Athens for a few years, and when I was in Athens, there was a place called Exarchia Square. I don't know if it's still like it now, but it was full of users. It was everywhere, and the people would literally go and give them money, literally on purpose, like lots of money or whatever they could, so that they would be able to use and not steal, or you know, because they realised that this is taken over this person completely.
They're helpless in face of their addiction, as it says in 12 Steps.
Controlling.
So I couldn't agree with you more in terms of how we see these kind of addicts as the lowest of the low, and actually we want to understand what level of wounding would cause them that kind of behaviour. You know, I'll see your crack and heroin addicts, and I'll raise you a paedophile satanic Illuminati. So if we look at it, so that there's that one element of society that we demonize and damn, and then there's the other side of society, which are the billionaires, if you know anything about anything, that the powerful VIP pedophiles who are also seen as the worst and of the worst. And again, in this practice, it's very simple. In the way of mastery, in the Christic tradition, everyone is a perfect child of God. Everyone is deserving of love. Even the rapist, even the paedophile, even the billionaire eugenicist, genocider. And you have to take that same compassion or forgiveness that you spoke about, and understand the level of wounding that would cause somebody to do that. It's the same. What is the level of wounding that would cause someone to be a paedophile? What is the level of wounding that would cause somebody to vaccinate half of Africa and kill hundreds of thousands of children? What is the level of wounding that would cause people to create a pandemic that causes so many people to commit suicide, lose their jobs, what is the level of wounding that would cause somebody to commit genocide? I mean, think about it. Just look at exactly what you said about the heroin addict that will destroy their whole life for this thing because they think it fills this hole of wounding and pain. What is the level? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And then there's a wonderful saying for all of this in our tradition: all attack is a call for love. All attack is a call for love. If you understand that in the human realm, something is either the extension of love, as we call it, the giving of love, or the extending of love through oneself, or the call for it. There's nothing else going on because it's all love. And so either you're giving love, or being an instrument or a vehicle of love, or you're trying to get it. And all the behavior that we see as negative is the addicts and the paedophiles. It's their attempt to get love. Now, I know it looks on the surface cold and calculating in some ways.
This is not by any means condoning it.
Now, I'm not condoning the behaviour. I'm trying to explain exactly as you would with exactly as you did. It's the same thing. It's like you can look at an addict, oh, you junkie, you loser. Or, oh my God, the pain that you're in. And you can do the same thing with a terrible, you know, a rapist or a paedophile. It's, oh, you're a horrible, evil person. Oh my God, you think that doing that will fill the hole, you know what I mean? They're both wrong. It's just that one only hurts themselves, seemingly, whereas the other one hurts others as well. And so it's viewed in a slightly different way, but it's absolutely the same thing. And I know I wanted to go there because you went there. But when you go the Christic route, you have to go to the nature of evil. Because deep down, whether we like to admit it or not, if you believe in separation, it naturally comes from there that you believe in superiority
Yeah.
and inferiority,
Hierarchy.
good and bad, right and wrong, good and evil. That we all do. You know, it's there, and that is the illusion. It is the illusion. There is no evil other than the evil you project from your own unhealed wounding.
Yes.
And that is part of the healing. Is that's why Jesus said, love your enemies. That's what, it's the hardest teaching of all time.
Yeah.
No one talks about it, but it's the simplest teaching of all time as
Yeah.
well. Love your, pray for those who persecute
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
If everybody just practiced that,
Yeah.
the world would heal.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to, because we it's much easier to hold on to our judgments and our sense of righteousness, because our pain and wounding, we want it to be there and not here. Because to be able to love your enemies, you have to see where your enemies exist in you.
Yes.
And you have to be with that horrible pain of shadow and unworthiness and abandonment and I'm not good enough, which is what creates evil in the world. It's this black hole of not good enoughness and separateness that we can't stand to be with for very long. So we have to either be an addict and distract and suppress, or project it onto others as bad guys. And that's all that's really going on.
Yeah.
We went there.
It's great. It's great. Really good. It's so powerful, isn't it? That stepping out of separation. It's why I was visiting a community earlier this year. I think I spoke to you about it. And actually, it was the main reason I left, because the hatred, like the anti-vaccine, like that separation and how extreme it's going. And I just see that the planet right now has got so many energies, hyped up to intense, going everywhere, that it is a complete practice in every single moment to be mindful of yourself and your energy, and quite easily from a place of love, and truth within yourself, you can be like, that's not for me, and be discerning, to turning that to that's a judgment and that's bad, to turning that to I hate it, and then before you know you are a hater, and you've turned into that in the first place, and you're just like,
exactly.
And it's happening all the time.
It's happening all the time in the blink
all
of
the
an eye.
time. So just like really being mindful and being like, okay, for me right now, this is my truth, and like keep staying there, keep, you know.
And it's why it's taking, and this is why it's like your daily life. Again, another expression we have is your daily life is the perfect ashram. It's like every moment of your life, there's no ordinary moments. Every moment is an opportunity to breathe, relax, be present, and center in that place where we're all one. And not allow ourselves to go through that process of reaction of, okay, this is my choice, fine, which you can make in presence, and then if you stay in presence, it stops there. It stops there. This is my choice. But as you said, if you don't stay in presence, if you allow yourself to get into the old monkey mind, my choice turns into the right choice. And then the right choice means that somebody else's choice is the wrong choice, and somebody else making the wrong choice means they are wrong, meaning they are bad. I'm good. And I'm good and they're bad, and then you're there. And then you're in the world. But that is exactly. Literally, I was saying this last night to my group, is that in this path is that the way to basically, so my path is to incarnate Christ. I am a disciple of the Christ mind. So that means that, you know, Jeshua was just one person who incarnated Christ. The Buddha incarnated Christ, you could call it that. Lao Tzu incarnated Christ. So if you're on this path, if you're a practitioner of this path, your goal is to incarnate Christ. And one of the ways that you do that is something called the keys to the kingdom. And so there's 4 keys to the kingdom. It's the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else shall be added unto you. So when you find that source of truth within, the source of love, source of happiness, or you can choose it, basically you're sorted. And there are 4 steps: desire, intention, allowance, and surrender. So first of all, and this is the first step that basically usually it takes a few decades for people to get there. You can't really expect a young person to get there, because a young person has to go out into the world and follow their ambitions and try to make, you know, their life. It's just natural. But the first step is desire. So you have to desire enlightenment or awakening or Christhood above all other things.
Yeah.
And as I said, most young people aren't going to do that. Some might, but it usually comes later on in life, after you're about 35, where you realize the world can't make you happy.
Yeah.
That is a realization that comes with age, when you've had enough relationships and you've had enough money and you've had enough beautiful things, and you realize, yeah, nothing fills the hole. And then you go, okay, yeah, the only thing that will fill the hole is my oneness with everything. And so the first thing is desire. So you have to have the desire. They say you must want enlightenment like a drowning man wants air. Okay. And I'm one of those rare people that has that. I want it that badly, to the exclusion of everything else. And then the second thing is intention. And intention just means, in your daily life, what are you doing to manifest that desire? So in my daily life, it's like, so I do my practices that incarnate more Christ every day. And it's the stuff that we've been talking about. And then the third step, and this is the real key one, is allowance. And allowance simply means what we were saying about accepting. You allow life, flow, truth, spirit, love, pain, fear, whatever. You allow whatever it is that seeks to arise within the sky of your consciousness, to arise, be seen, be witnessed, be embraced, and allowed to go. And you just do that with literally everything. And not just within you, because basically the world is within you, and that's the thing I was going to say, but with the events that happen. So something happens outside you don't like. Maybe it's something in the larger world to do with COVID. Maybe it's something in your family or your relationship. But you take the same attitude of allowance. You don't. I'm not saying you accept abuse. No. But you understand that this thing is. It is happening. I'm not going to take the attitude it shouldn't be happening. I'm resisting it. Get that, You allow it. You allow it to be, and you see it as an opportunity to choose love. So I'll give you one example where people always say, yeah, but what if I'm being abused by my husband, let's say. So say, okay, so you see that all attack is a call for love, so he's abusing you out of his call for love. And then you see that, you allow it, you recognize it, and then you choose love. Now, in a situation where you're being abused, your first duty is to love yourself. And therefore your first duty is to remove yourself from the abuse. So there is never a reason to accept abuse. And allowance and being Christic is never about accepting it. People always say, yeah, but if I allow everything, no. Because you will always love yourself. And anybody who loves themselves does not allow themselves to be walked all over. You know, they have nobility.
Self-boundaries.
Self-boundaries, what you Jack Cornfield. Nobility. Nobility means I am a sovereign being, I love myself. It doesn't mean I have to impose anything on anybody else. It just means I don't allow other people to impose on me. And that is a fully allowance. And part of allowance is what we call relinquishing the world. And this is the long point that I wanted to make, is that what the world actually is our judgments, interpretations, stories, beliefs, opinions about reality. So there is reality, which is a direct experience. It's a felt experience. You experience it throughout your body, non-verbally, basically. You feel reality. And then there is thinking about, and that is fantasy. All thinking is fantasy. It's not reality. And the world, what in our tradition we call the world, so this is life. The world is all our thoughts about it. All our thoughts about COVID, vaccines, politics, all of it. You know, that's the world. And when you hear that expression, to be in the world but not of it, that's a Christic expression. And it means to relinquish the value that we give to our thinking. That we think we're right about this, we think we know this, we don't know anything. Not at the level of mind. We know everything at the level of heart because we're one with it all. But at the level of the intellect, we are completely ignorant. The world is too big, too multidimensional, too all-changing, too variable for us to know anything. But we think we do know. And that thinking that we know that leads us to think we're right and they're wrong, we're good and they're bad, causes all the problems.
Yes.
So you relinquish your belief that you know anything, and as Joshua said, one must be reborn as a little child to enter the kingdom of heaven. And that's what it's about. It's about innocence. I don't know. So you engage the world in a place of wonder.
And you have an inner sense.
Innocence, good one.
You have an innocence, which guides you in the present moment.
And that is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
That's exactly that inner sense is what we call the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And it's the Holy Spirit that tells you to go right or left.
Yes.
It's the Holy Spirit that gives you the words. It's the Holy Spirit that gives you the gestures and the actions. And they will all be loving, because the Holy Spirit only serves love.
Yeah.
And it's not your ego or your mind or the maker or doer who is trying to get love.
No.
Remember,
Yeah.
it's that part of you is trying to get.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit is trying to serve and give.
Yeah.
And if you relinquish all your thoughts about the past, the future, opinions, beliefs, judgments, interpretations, or you practice relinquishing them, because I don't relinquish them all the time, obviously, but I practice letting go of that, and they call it we call it empty-headedness. It's literally, and I can tell you that there is a feeling when you are literally completely empty in your head and in your body, but just you like there's spaciousness there. There is no I know this and I know that and I'm right about this. There's none of that. There is just peace. And empty, believe me, you want empty-headedness. You really want it, and then you realize, oh, I'm not in charge. Like, I'm not the one doing this. It's being done through me by something so amazing and grand that I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to be, stressed about whether or not I'm good enough, because I'm not the one doing it. God is doing it, and God can definitely handle it. Even if I think I'm too small, God isn't.
That would only be the little mosquito mind thinking it's too small, and then we remember the reflections of God and just remember again that actually we've got this.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, who we really are can totally handle it.
Yeah.
But it's the little one that thinks all the time.
Mind,
that thinks, oh, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. Well, that can chill out, because actually God can handle it, and you are God. There is only God. And it is God pretending to be a body mind. I always say it's like the universe so like the sun, everything in the universe is the universe in a different form. Yes. So the sun is the universe in a sun suit, a tree is the universe in a tree suit, you are the universe in a sun suit. And you could just use instead of universe, say God. Yes. God in a human suit. Yeah. It's all God. Yes. It's all God. And we have the blessing of being human is that we can be aware of that. We can be witnesses to the fact that we are a channel for God to operate in the world, and that is bliss. Yes. That there is nothing other. Bliss is simply witnessing the fact that you are both the channel, the experience, and the experiencer. Yeah. You are all three of them. Yeah. You are God, the vehicle, and the experience. Yes. And if you can be present to that, then you're in bliss, and it's all over for you. You don't need anything else.
Job's good in. Yeah. Oh, good bliss. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
been epic.
That was great, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was
really enjoyed
fun,
it.
man.
Yeah. I've got no idea how much we've got left. So I'm going to check. But thank you.
But that seemed like a good place to finish, didn't it? Natural silence.
So good, yeah.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Wicked. Oh, you're so welcome.
Big love, yeah.
Big love.
Keep full power for everything we're doing in your truth, and to see you blooming. And
likewise.
Yeah, thank you.
Likewise for you. Rock on with your bad self. Yeah, girl.
And our good and our bad and our
the ups and downs and the ins and outs. It's all God. It's all good.